The Real Madrid season for 2022-2023 just ended. But did they have a good season? That's a question that I want to answer right now. But before we get into the video, please don't forget to subscribe if you like football related content. Now talking about Real Madrid. The season before, Real Madrid ended on a super high. They won the Champions League, they won La Liga, and Benzema was undoubtedly the best player in the world. So going into this season, I expected them to keep up that same performance. And at the beginning they did. At the beginning of the season, it looked like they were the same Real Madrid from last season. But slowly as the season went on, you start to see some inconsistencies in the team, specifically with Benzema. And I don't like critiquing Benzema, but I feel like for the sake of the season, I have to critique him here. He wasn't the same Benzema as last year. That's pretty obvious to see to anyone. Now that could be for a lot of reasons. One of the reasons I think was that he would just honestly just injured all season long. He would play a few games and get injured again. He would play a few games and get injured again. That was kind of his thing all season long. But also that could be because he just played a lot of games. Like Benzema is 35 years old and he played so many games last season. He carried this team through everything. So the fact that his body eventually gave out this season, it makes sense. So I can't really fault him for not being at his best this season. But you could see the team really struggled when he wasn't on the pitch. Just because Real Madrid's whole game plan was get the ball to Vinny or Benzema and let them do their thing. But with Benzema out there, it was just get the ball to Vinny. And even though Vinny to me is a top 3 player in the world, he cannot do everything by himself. Like, if you see the way Real Madrid played, without Benzema, the game plan was just get the ball to Vinny and let him do whatever he can. And most of the time that worked because Vinny's that type of player. However, in certain situations, Vinny was left alone too much. La Liga teams eventually started figuring out that Ancelotti's only game plan was give the ball to Vinny and let him do his thing. So eventually they started putting 2 or 3 guys on him. And for any player in the world, having 2 or 3 players on you is hard to get past, especially when they're just kicking and fouling you if you do get past them. So that happened a lot because Benzema was injured a lot, but also he just wasn't the same Benzema as he was last season. But as well, Ancelotti. Ancelotti proves this season again that he has no tactics. Like, Ancelotti's philosophy is basically let the players do whatever they want to do because they're all world class players. But in situations like this, he has to step in and change something up because towards the end of the season, Real Madrid started dropping a lot of points because Ancelotti has no tactics. And other coaches realized that and they were like, oh, wait, Ancelotti has no tactics. So let's just block Vinny. And that's what they did. They put 2 or 3 people on Vinny, and Ancelotti had no idea what to do. And this isn't like a new thing. This is the same thing Ancelotti did last year, but last year was the season that Vinny first exploded onto the scene. So coaches weren't that prepared for Vinny, but now they are. And with Benzema out there, Ancelotti was exposed. So due to that, I feel like Ancelotti shouldn't be the one leading this team because obviously Real Madrid is going into a new generation. The old guard is leaving and the new guard's coming in. And I don't think Ancelotti should be the one that starts this revolution. If we're going to full reset this team, Ancelotti has to go too. But it looks like he's not. So it is what it is. But anyway, talking about the season, Real Madrid started off decently well. However, right before the World Cup, I would say like a month before the World Cup, everything went wrong. It seemed to me like the players just stopped trying because they knew the World Cup was coming up and they wanted to be 100% for that. But, like, I don't know, maybe make it less obvious because to me it was obvious. The players just weren't trying. It felt like they were walking around the pitch. It felt like they weren't giving it their all just to be prepared for the World Cup. And that honestly hindered the team a lot because we dropped a lot of points during that time. And I think that was when Barcelona officially took us over in the league charts. And after that, Real Madrid just never caught up to them. But at one point, they were still close to them. But like I said, towards the end of the season, Barcelona started gaining up more points because, like I said, Real Madrid was exposed because Ancelotti had no tactics. So when it comes to the league, I feel like the league is a solid 5 out of 10. Just because they got second. And that was a close second. Like, I thought at one point they were actually going to get third. However, they ended up clutching up second, but they still ended up being second to Barcelona by a lot of points. So that's why it's a 5 out of 10. So the league overall was not a success. But a season highlight was the Copa del Rey. After so long, Real Madrid finally won La Copa del Rey. And honestly, that makes me happy. Just because it's genuinely insane how Real Madrid can dominate multiple trophies except this one. Like, let me put it into context. Toni Kroos has been at Real Madrid for almost a decade. And just now, he's winning his first one ever. Like, this man has won the World Cup, the Champions League, La Liga, Club World Cup. He's won so many trophies, and it wasn't until this year he finally got his hands on a Copa del Rey. So as a fan, that's a solid for me, 10 out of 10. I'm super glad they won it. But that's a small trophy in comparison to La Liga and the Champions League. And speaking about the Champions League, that's the next thing I want to talk about. Up until that moment, Real Madrid got smashed by Man City, I would have given this season a solid 7 out of 10. It wasn't the best La Liga run, but they won La Copa del Rey after so long. However, to me, this Man City game where they lost 4-0 was a tipping. I've had enough. Because it wasn't just the fact that they got slammed. It's the fact of how they got slammed. Every single player looked like they just didn't want to be there. And that's something insane to say from a Real Madrid fan talking about Real Madrid in the Champions League. Because no matter what, at any point in time, no matter the situation in the league, no matter the situation in any cup competition, Real Madrid will always show up for a Champions League night. However, this night, they weren't there. The only person who looked like he wanted to be there was Vinny and Thibaut Courtois. Except those two, I feel like the rest of the team played horrible. But the worst two were, to me, Modric and Benzema. Like, I've seen Modric play for over a decade now. I've seen him at his worst. I've seen him at his best. But I feel like that game was his absolute worst. Like, every single ball he touched, useless. Like, he gave bad passes. He gave bad touches. He couldn't control the ball. I don't know what came over Modric that game, but it was absolutely horrible. And I hate saying that about Modric, but it is what it is. And also Benzema. Over the 2 games in that tie, Benzema was non-existent. He maybe touched like 5 balls over those 2 games. And the interesting quote that Benzema once said was that he will leave Real Madrid if he feels like he's holding the team back. And that is, I think that game is one of the big reasons why he left Real Madrid. He probably realized that he's just not built for this anymore. And after being on Real Madrid for so long, I feel like he can decide his future. And if he wants to go, he can go. And that's what he did. So I respect it. But the Champions League run itself was pretty good. They beat Chelsea, they beat Liverpool. But it's just that Man City game that really messed it up because they got slammed. And Manchester City was undoubtedly the deserved winner. You can't even like complain or say anything because they deserved to win. So the overall Champions League run, I would give it a 6 out of 10. Like, even though they made it to the semifinal, it should be higher, but them getting slammed like they did makes it a 6 out of 10. Like, if the game was close, I would have given them a higher rating for the Champions League, but it wasn't. So that's why it's a 6 out of 10. So overall, the season wasn't horrible. And that's the best way I can put it. It wasn't a success, but it wasn't an absolute disaster. It was just okay. If they didn't win La Copa del Rey, then it would have been an absolute disaster. But luckily they won it, so that's why the season is just okay. So these were my thoughts on the Real Madrid season for 2022-2023. Hopefully next season can be better. But I can't complain. I mean, Real Madrid haven't signed a superstar player in years. So the fact that we've had basically the same team now for 4 seasons and managed to still win the Champions League last season and do okay this season, I'll take it. But I feel like Perez is finally fed up and he's going to start making some really big moves in the transfer market. So let's hope for that. For my next video, I want to talk about the overall squad of Real Madrid, so make sure to look out for that. But I want to thank you for watching this video. If you agree or disagree with anything I said, please leave a comment so we can discuss it. Also, don't forget to hit that like button, and please subscribe if you like the content I'm doing. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.